contraction. So that you can see that when we do all these physiology things, muscle physiology, when we hear about contractions and all that kind of stuff, you see there's a relationship mechanically. There's a force-based relationship and reason for these things. Now, another perspective. Can I get you guys to help me real quick? I have some assistants here. I'm going to call them in already, and they're just going to grab this, and they're going to have a little tug of war. Now notice we're not looking at the bone. This is, I know it's PVC, the plumbers use it. Let's call it a bone, okay? I'm going to turn it this way this time. And they're having a tug of war. Guys, go back and forth just a little bit. See if you can, yeah, you know, you're competitive. Okay, here we go. So they're having a little tug of war there. Another thing that force determines, this is how cool biomechanics is, it determines who's going to play the game. It determines muscular participation. Because if this guy over here is the resistance and he says, oh, I'm going to move my cable to pull this direction on my arm. Well, you can't have a tug of war anymore. Somebody else, maybe some muscle that's down here, is going to be the new guy that's really good at having a tug of war. Do you follow me? So how you apply force to a person determines what's happening inside of them. And that's really, really huge. It's really huge. That makes you key to the outcomes of the exercise. Thanks, guys. Don't go away. All right. So on your slide, you can see that same exact thing. Hopefully it helps to have both aspects of it. Me doing it live and the slide also. So you can see there's something real about it. Now, let's go from a tug of war around a bone. Tug of war around a bone. If we were doing this, I'm going to have you guys come back in. God, you're handy. All right. So they're having a tug of war around a bone, but notice when we were having a tug of war around the bone, go back and forth, the bone just flops around. Now your bones don't flop around because they have this thing that you and I talked about back in the skeletal section called joints. And what's a joint? A joint is where we come in here and this end of the bone is restrained. So now when they move back and forth, look what happens. No floppage down at the bottom. It's attached to another bone. We go from a tug of war around a bone to a tug of war around a joint. Remember the joint? The center of all human motion. This is the center of the universe for the human movement. Right here in the palm of my hand is a joint, right? And the tug of war is existing around those. Pretty cool, huh? Now, what are we going to do with that? Well, when we did that, we created what we call a lever. Now, I know you've used the word lever before, probably. A lever truly is the distance from this joint to where they're having a tug of war, to this axis, or to this force application. So right now, this force and this force are applied at the same point. They both have the same lever length. All right? So unless you move the dumbbell to a different part of your arm, right, or unless you reattach a muscle to a different place, those levers don't change all that much. All right? Now we're not finished. What happens in this tug of war if, let's say this is the resistance. This is a cable coming from a machine. And over here is the muscle. And what if the muscle was coming from a different angle? What if it was coming from a lower and lower and lower angle? So you can see on your slide, if it's being adjusted correctly, that this tug of war is still in the same plane, but we're not directly fighting each other. He's really kind of pulling in a different direction. Right? He's pulling in a totally different direction. And if he comes clear down here, he's trying to fight this guy pulling down. Now, what do you think he's going to have to do? That's inefficient. This guy is going to have to work really hard to fight this guy. If this is 10 pounds and always has been 10 pounds, well, he could have been pulling with 10 up here. By the time he's here, he might have to pull with